Okay, let us start. I think yung review natin of the previous lesson nandun na during sa quiz, no? Kasi nasali naman ito lahat sa quiz. Meron lang konti, very minimal na hindi. Just like the univariable, bivariable, and multivariables. Okay? And I think we ended here in the computation of the sample. So do not forget how when you say population, it's the total number of person or even object that is your target para kumuha ka ng certain information that you want also to know. Okay, that's the population. But most of the time, it is impossible and impractical to do population testing, especially if your population is the whole Philippines. So that is why we only do sample testing. We are just getting a portion of the population that will become the representative. So we are assuming that this sample will bear the characteristic of the population and we can get the data that we need from them. Okay? So just like ngayon, malapit na ang election, there are, ano nga yung mga nag-survey? Basta merong mga agencies that can, nag-echo me. Okay, there are certain, wait, okay, siya ang mag-adjust. Okay. Again, there are agencies nowadays that conduct, lain kayo maminaw sa sarili tingog. There are agencies that conduct survey plus like for example sa presidents and sa vice presidential balls natin ngayon. They don't really do population testing. Kaya kung population testing to nag-election na unta tato. Yung mga results of the surveys are just sample testing. So they just get samples from, I don't know if they just get theirs. I think nagde-divulge naman sila if the samples are just taken from Metro Manila or they have other samples taken from Visayas or even Mindanao. Pero this morning, we will talk about the different sampling methods. So ito yung kanina na na-ask ata ni Juliana na hindi ba siya random sampling or a random sample. Random sample is just one type. We have different types of sampling technique. And in research, it is also necessary for you to know these techniques and itatanong talaga sa inyo ng panel ito how you selected your sample. Kasi other types of sampling methods may be may have bias. So hindi natin ma-get rid, ma-eliminate yung bias from there. Now, let's talk for the first one. The first sampling method here is called probability sampling. Now, mahaba masyado ang kanyang definition. You just have to take note that when you say probability sampling, we are giving equal chance to all members of the population to be selected in the study. Wait lang. Okay, sorry, ma-distract po makadungog sa akong tingog. Masagnada siya sa kusina, saba. Tingnan mag-headset. Okay. Asa na to? Let's continue. Na-record na to, Kapil. Okay, again, probability sampling. We are giving equal chance to all members of the population to be included or selected in our study. I hope that is clear. We call that probability sampling. So for example, I want to conduct a research about the knowledge of the BS Pharmacy students on like antimicrobial resistance. So when I say pharmacy students, I'm just talking about GSDMSFI. So kung pila mo kabuok, example 150 mo kabuok, that's the population. But then again, we don't really do population testing. So I will just get samples from that 150. So magko-compute ako ng sample size using the Slovin's formula or the Rausoft calculator. Now, for example, ang result, example lang ito kasi hindi ako nag-compute. Example, sabi ni Rausoft, out of 150, 90 lang ang kailangan ko i-test. So, magsaselect ako ng 90 from the 150. Pero pag probability sampling kasi yon, I will give equal chance to all 150 students na ma-include sila sa study ko. Magkakaroon sila ng equal chance. Okay, sorry for the interruption. I really have problem with my internet connection. Again, saan ako? Wala na ko. Sana. Again, with 150 no. So magbibigay ako ng equal chance to the 150 to be included in my study na masali sila doon sa 90. So later I will talk to you I will teach you how are we going to do that na mabigyan ng equal chance yung 150 na ma-include doon sa sample. Okay? Pero itong probability sampling, please take note that the findings are valid and ginagamit siya to infer to. Okay, the struggle is real. Anong karoon combination nagdaot? Asya na ang recording. Ayan, andyan na. Sige. Again, for probability sampling, nag-record pa ba niyo? Siguro wala na. Nag-record siya. Okay, for probability sampling class, again, the results are valid and pwede natin siyang gamitin to make inferences or like generalization about the population. Okay? Valid. And at the same time, ginagamit to give generalization or inferences about the population. Now, we have 5 types, at least 5 types here of sampling techniques under the probability sampling. So we have here simple random, stratified random, systematic random, cluster, and the multi-stage sampling. I would like to assume na these are not new sa tabang mga langit doon sa Okay. Sige, let us start first with the first sampling technique under the probability sampling. We call this simple random sampling. From the name itself, the subjects will be randomly chosen. Again, the subjects will be randomly chosen. Now, this can be done through the following ways. You can either use the fishbowl technique, the lottery or raffle type method, or yung roulette wheel method, and the use of the table of random numbers. So bakit siya under sa probability sampling? Kasi by doing this, we are actually giving equal chance for all the members of the population na ma-select. Example, pag nag-fishbowl technique tayo class, ang ginagawa, either we write all the names of the members of the population in a paper, place it in a container na just like the fishbowl, and then magbubunot-bunot tayo. So yan yung ginagawa. Siyempre, nagkaroon ng equal chance kasi lahat naman ng names na include doon. Okay? It's just that we just need to choose 90. Pero again, equal yung chance sa lahat ng members na ma-select. That is also true when we use the lottery or raffle type na method or yung roleta, di ba? I think may mga teachers kayo na gumagamit ng wheel of names. So yun, magkakaroon ng equal chance lahat ng members of your population to be selected and included in the study. Even the use of the table of random numbers, like you are going to hindi ka nagagamit ng full name ng iyong participants or yung population, but you will just assign numbers for them, and then mapipili ka na lang ng numbers out from it, and then kung kaninong name yung corresponding number na napili, yun yung mai-include sa study mo. But nevertheless, since all names are included there, then ano siya, probability sampling. So again, this is what you call simple random sampling. Randomly chosen through the following techniques. So I hope klaro yan siya. Any question about the simple random sampling before tayo mag-move on with the stratified random sampling? Any questions? Wala. I would like to show you a video para ma-picture out nyo anong ginagawa sa simple random sampling. Let me just pause first the recording. And that simple random sampling, it's either you use the manual fishbowl method wherein you will really write all the names in a paper and place it in a container like a fishbowl, and then magdodraw ka doon kung ilan yung kailangan mo na sample size. But if your sample is like marami na masyado, mahirapan ka na mag-write ng kanilang names, then we can use softwares. Okay? That, for example, we will assign numbers na lang sa ating mga participants or sa ating population, and then yung numbers na lang yung ilalagay natin sa software, and the software will generate the selected numbers. So it can also be the wheel of names, as long as ayun, random sampling pa rin siya, pipili siya ng names doon. That's random sampling. Everybody has equal chance to be selected in the research. Most likely, we are going to use this sampling method sa research class. Okay? So do not ever use the term simple random sampling if hindi nyo ginawa itong either of, ilan ba ito? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Four methods in doing the simple random sampling. Kaya basig, ang inyong gibuhat na kaning mga gusto na ko pilion kay mauna ning akong hatagan sa questionnaire. It's not really random sampling. It's not probability sampling kay ikaw naman ang namili. And there is bias there. Kaya kung kinsa lang imuhang gusto hatagan sa questionnaire, for example, o lang po doon naka-answer, wala na equal chance. Hindi na nabigyan ng chance yung iba. Paano kung hindi mo siya gusto bigyan? So wala na yung chance yung hindi mo gusto bigyan ng questionnaire. Now, another type of probability sampling is the stratified random sampling. Again, I will assume na this is not new sa inyo ha, kasi you have your statistics na subject in your high school. But let us just have a review na lang on how to do the stratified random sampling. Again, this is still under the probability sampling, meaning we are still giving equal chance to all the members of the population to be selected in your study. Now, how are we going to do the stratified random sampling, and how is it different from the simple random? So stratified random sampling class, we are first going to group our population into strata. We call it strata or group. Now, itong group na ito, they are homogeneous, meaning they have the same characteristics. So for example, we have the whole population and we will first divide them according to age. Yung mga bata, like mga adolescent and mga toddlers, isang group sila. Yung group age na 20 or 19 to 30 and then 31 to 40. So isang grupo sila according to age. Or most of the time, sa mga nakikita ko na research, when they do stratified random sampling, most of the time they use the gender. So they will group together all the males, not the gender but the sex, all the males and all the females. Or kung gender talaga ang gagamitin, so marami yon according to the orientation. So yun, i-group muna before we will randomly select from each group. That's stratified random sampling. Pwede ding economic status. So yung mga low income na class, middle income, or yung mga rich, very rich, isang grupo sila. Okay, again, i-grupo muna before we will randomly select samples from each group. Ganon ang difference class ha ni simple random and ni stratified. Si simple, diretso na. We will write all the names, we will assign or we will assign numbers and then bunot-bunot na. It doesn't matter kung lalaki, babae, or yung age nila, hindi yan nagmamatter. Basta diretso na randomly we will select. Pero pag sinabi niyong, ma'am, we want to do stratified random sampling in our study, the first thing that you need to do after identifying your population is grouping your members of the population before randomly selecting from each group. So we will continue with, again, first you need to identify your population, and then number 2, you have to divide your population into subgroups or strata. Strata if marami, stratum if isa lang. Now, after that, hindi pala dalawa ba? Depende sa group mo, depende sa strata mo kung ilan ka, gaano karami ka na times mag-compute ng sample size. So for example, yung sa example niya, dalawa lang kasi male and female. Pag na-divide mo na kasi yung population mo, male and female, magko-compute ka ng sample size para sa male, magko-compute ka rin ng sample size para sa female. Pero ganun pa rin, either use the Sloven's formula or use the Rausov calculator. So for example, pag divide mo sa population mo, 100 yung male, 200 yung female. So yung population mo ngayon in the sample size, sa first one, 100 na ang gagamitin mo. That's for the male. So i-compute mo out from the 100 ilan dapat yung magiging sample. And then that is also true for the second group, for the female. Example, 200 sila. You will also compute kung ilan sa 200 yung isasali natin sa research. Okay? So, dalawang beses nag-compute for the sample size. Now, after knowing the sample size, babalik ka sa random sampling, meaning you can still do the fishbowl method, the lottery method, kasi you will also randomly select yung sample mo for each group. Okay? Babalik pa rin siya sa simple random sampling after dividing the population into subgroups. Do you have questions? You want to ask something about simple random and stratified sampling? Basig na ay nalibog din ha, kung unsaon siya. I hope klaro na sa inyo ha, na ing ato di ay ang buhaton for stratified sampling. Wala. So, let us continue. Let us continue. Systematic random sampling. Sa systematic random sampling, actually, we are looking here for the interval meron tayong interval na tinatawag, ililist muna natin yung ating population. Tapos, ide-determine natin yung sample size and then we will select them according to interval. So, hindi siya kagaya ng simple random na bunot-bunot lang. Dito, may list ka pa rin ng population mo pero magko-compute ka ng interval. I will also show you a video later on how this is done. Pero, probability sampling pa rin ito kasi bibigyan pa rin natin ng equal chance ang lahat ng members of the population to be selected in the study. Pero again, meron muna tayong list. So the list is naka-arrange yung names ng ating population doon and depende na sa iyo kung paano mo siya i-list. Either you arrange the names alphabetically or you arrange the names according to their location or whatever kung unsang imuhang napili na way of listing the names of your participants. Tapos, gagamit tayo ng formula. This is our formula. K is the sampling interval, N is the total population, and then small letter n is the desired sample size. So wait lang ha. Video muna tayo and then mag-explain din ako afterward. And what you are going to do with the systematic sampling. So number 1, we have to first magsa-start ka talaga in the identification of the population. And then after that, if you have the number of the population there, we will be computing for the sample size. So ganun pa rin ang pag-compute ng sample size, Rausov calculator or Sloven's formula. Now, after that, after knowing the sample size, we are going to compute for the interval. Okay, sampling interval. So again, this is our formula. Parehas lang yung formula, iba lang yung ginamit na letters in representing ha. Yung K is the sampling interval, and then capital letter N is the total population, and N is the desired sample size. So for example, yung sa video kanina, di ba, 30 yung na-identify na population. Tapos pag-compute, example lang, kailangan mo ng 5. Sample size mo is 5. So i-divide mo lang yan siya, class. So 30 divided by 5. Kaya yung interval doon ay 6. Tapos ililist down mo na yung iyong participants in the study or yung population mo. So from 1 to 30 yan siya. So pwedeng mag-assign ka lang ng number sa kanila para hindi mo na makita yung names nila. After na pag-choose, makita mo kung sino yung mga nasali sa sample. So hanggang 30 yan siya. Now again, we just need 5. Now this is systematic sampling with random start. Meaning alam mo na yung interval pero kailangan random start ka. It's up to you actually saan ka magsa-start. So sa example kanina, sa 1 talaga siya nag-start. So this is the first sample niya. Kailangan niya na lang ng 4. So ang gamit nito is interval siya. So i-add mo lang siya. Since nag-start ka sa 1, 1 plus 6, the next person to be selected in the study is yung number 7. So kung sino man siya. And then 7 plus 6 is 13. And then 13 plus 6 is 19. 19 plus 6 is 25. So kung bibilangin mo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nabuo mo na yung sample size mo na 5. Okay, so that's how you do a systematic sampling. Systematic because we have here a system of selecting the sample. So do not forget to compute for the sampling interval and then mag-choose ka ng random start. Okay, questions about the systematic sampling? Yung end ng video, actually, chinek niya lang kung tama ba ang ginawa niya. Meron kasing way of checking if tama yung ginawa na systematic sampling. So, if we, let us, paano makuha ang sample size? Ganun pa rin, Slovin's formula or Rouse-of calculator. Pero yung sa example na 30 tapos 5 lang, example lang yun siya kasi hindi naman talaga yun nag-compute ng sample size. Okay? Wait lang. Sige. Ayan. Yung sa last part ng video, nag-compute siya. The formula for checking is random start plus n minus 1 times the sampling interval. Lagay ko na lang ha, K. Again, random start plus n minus 1 times the sampling interval. Diba doon sa example, nag-start siya sa number 1. So that's the random start. Plus n is the sample size. So diba the sample size there is 5. So minus 1 times the K. The sampling interval diba is 6. Sa example lang ito ha. So mo lang siya. You will just do the math. So 1 plus, anong unahin mo dito? Anong unahin natin dyan? This one is like this. Lagay natin ha para hindi tayo malito. Okay, kaya basig unahon ninyo ang 1 times 6. Okay, 5 minus 1 is 4 times 6. So that's 24 plus 1 is 25. So again, this is just done for checking kung tama ba yung sampling interval niya. So this one is correct. If you can still remember, the last person na na-select during the sampling is yung person number 25. So tama yung ginawa niya based on the desired sample size and the sampling interval. So I hope that's clear ha. This formula is used to compute for the sampling interval, while this formula is used to compute, is used to check whether tama or hindi ang ginawang systematic sampling. So this will be used to check whether tama yung last person na napili. Okay? Questions about the systematic sampling? Again, yung pag-calculate ng sample size for all the different sampling method is the same. Either you use the Slovin's formula or you use the Rouse-of calculator. Yung method lang ng pag-select dito yung nagkakaiba. Okay? Method ng pag-select ha. Example, 5 lang imong kailangan na sample size. So, ang pag-choose ng 5 ang different. Whether you use random, stratified, this one is systematic, and then the next one is called the cluster sampling. Okay, again, this next one is called cluster sampling. So it actually has a similarity to the stratified sampling. Nga naman, kasi we will also group the population into clusters. This time we call it clusters. Kanina we call it strata. The subgroup sa stratified sampling, strata yon. And then ito ang tawag natin cluster. Pero paano sila naging different? Remember, in the stratified sampling, the grouping is homogeneous. When you say homogeneous, dapat magkakapareho sila ng characteristics. So pag sinabing babae, babae lang lahat. Pag lalaki, lalaki lang din lahat. Kung age group yung ginamit in dividing, then lahat ng adults, lahat ng sino pa mga adolescents, isang group sila. So parehas sila ng characteristics. That's stratified sampling. But for cluster sampling, again, for cluster sampling, the grouping will be heterogeneous. Wait lang ha. Kay murag ni balik na among internet.